John Lonergan, Governor of Mountjoy Prison in Dublin, on his way to find out if an experiment taking place in the Verne Prison in England would be suitable for introduction into the prison system in Ireland. The Verne Prison is in Portland, 46 miles from Bournemouth in the south of England. To cope with the ever-growing prison population, there are now 3 prisons on Portland. One for young offenders, one a prison ship, and this one called the Verne. Even though the sea surrounds the Verne, the prisoners have no view of it, but they have no escape from the never-ending cries of hundreds of seagulls. There are 600 prisoners here. 70 of them have volunteered to do a Christian-based rehabilitation program which originated in Brazil. The authorities gave up on a prison that was out of control in the town of San Jose and handed the prison over to Christian volunteers. The volunteers taught the prisoners to love and respect one another with spectacular results. Violence and drug-taking were eliminated, and the rate of reoffending dropped from 80% to an unbelievable 4%. The program has been introduced into over 300 prisons in other countries, including the United States, and the results have been equally successful. Kairos is what the program is called. It means seize the opportunity. In the Verne, it was the commitment of Principal Prison Officer Jeff Hebburn that convinced the authorities to introduce a similar program there.
From our point of view, it's achieved everything we set out to do. It's transformed this wing. It's having a very positive influence throughout the rest of the prison. And some of the individuals that came on here were quite notably really difficult confrontational men. Now, we didn't pick and choose. We took them we just took them as they came from the normal population. And some of them we were told wouldn't last more than 3 days, and they're still here.
In Mountjoy, most prisoners are 2 to a cell. There's an epidemic of drug taking, and the reoffending rate is over 70%. What's more, it costs £46,000 a year to keep a prisoner in jail.
During the few days I'm going to spend here, I'm going to look at the programme objectively, get a feel of it, and hopefully then decide really on the basis of what I have found how valuable it might be in an Irish context.
The first thing John Lonergan does is to go and have a private chat with the Governor of the Verne, who does not wish to be filmed. Before the Kairos project, this wing was the most disruptive in the whole prison.
12-6. 12-6? Yeah. I'd been working in this wing for 4 years as the wing manager. And this was a very difficult place to run. They were all in dormitory accommodation, mostly short-termers, and constant vandalism, damage, drug taking, assaults, fires, what you name it. Well, right from the beginning, I realised that this would not work unless I had the support of 2 different groups of people. Ownership, if you like. One was the staff and one were the inmates. So I first of all spoke to my staff about it, and they were quite happy to support it and go along with it. And then pulled in certain inmates and spoke to them, and then formed a planning committee of staff and inmates. So right from day one, there's been ownership of this from both groups, even to the design of the dormitories, which we got an inmate to design.
Every prisoner on the project has a key to his dormitory. They have to live 8 to a dorm. John Duggan, originally from County Down, joined Kairos a week ago. He gave up a single cell and a good prison job in another prison to come here to the Verne.
When you're in prison, it takes a while to acquire anything, even a job or anything like that. And I'd achieved everything that I could in the last prison. I'd got as far as I could in the system. And to come here was, in actual fact, a step down in all ways. I was coming back to not working. I was coming back to living not just 2'd up, but 8 up. It was a sort of ethos of the project that I read in the booklet that appealed to me.
The ethos is love and respect for one another. The dorms are at the heart of the Kairos project. There are 9 dorms like this one, and the prisoners, or residents as they're called, make their own rules for their dorms.
I can see there's not as much as you would normally get in a main prison wing. There's no bullying, there's no sort of macho image. People try and, from what I can see, and that's only after a week, I mean, I can see people trying to help other people do the right thing, partly for their own benefit, but also for theirs, or the whole, the unit as a whole, and it is treated as such. I mean, I've seen people not point to people that they're doing wrong, but say, look, you're bringing this onto us.
It's like real spread out. It was really good.
Actually, when we used to eat in the dining room,
it really should happen more.
I'm an angry head, and I have been angry for a long time, but there's a different side to me. There's a very caring and compassionate side. And I feel that we all have that. I think we can be compassionate to one another. And it doesn't mean you have to be a homosexual or recognised as one or anything like that. You know, you can be a human with feelings.
I don't know, I find it really, really delicate and a difficult process. Like, if you get too close, people are wondering, oh, what's his game? And if you remain distant, it's like, oh, he doesn't care.
And if you think there's nothing wrong with your approach, then do it. Achieve what you think. And then learn from the response. Learn from your mistakes if it's a mistake. And you know, you never know. It may not be a mistake. It may be positive. It may make you feel good. So you end up with loads of warm fuzzies instead of cold, prickly strokes.
This is one of the
Jeff Hebburn believes that Kairos offers a serious alternative to the present prison system.
I think we need to face something, and that is that prison systems really have used up all their options, and everywhere is facing rising populations, reducing budgets, and generally more and more difficult problems to deal with. Drugs is a major one. And it's not that this is just a last-ditch attempt to do something, but I really do believe that this will work, and is working. And after 24 years of it, this is the most positive, exciting program I've ever been involved in. First of all, you have to learn to love yourself. After that, if you learn to love your neighbour, then you won't rob him or rape her or sell his children drugs anymore.
Brian Trinder, a lifer, has been in prison 25 years.
The girl who I was living with, I found out that she'd been going with another fella. At the time I was on the run from the police as well. I'd served 2 short YP sentences for stealing cars. And I read a letter to say that she was carrying on with somebody else, basically, and I snapped. Unfortunately, it was my common law wife's stepsister who was there at the time, and I vented my anger on her and murdered her as such. Something I'm not very proud of now at all. And of course, when I came to prison, you know, we got a life sentence for that. I basically thought my life was over as such. You know, I was 22 years old then when that happened. I haven't always conformed to the way the system has wanted me to be. I've been a bit of a rebel in my time and basically banged my head against a brick wall for a number of years. I had heard about this Kairos program here, and the actual icing on the cake for me was we got an Inside Times magazine which is done for all prisons, and I read an article in there about it, and I saw that Trevor Hogarth was the coordinator of it, and as I say, I do know Trevor from his own experience in jail as such. And my first sort of thoughts on that was if Trevor has got anything to do with running this, it won't be a bad project at all.
As an ex-prisoner himself, Trevor Hogarth has great credibility with the men and can successfully challenge their behaviour and attitudes. He's responsible for the day-to-day running of the programme.
I think It's the fact that a lot of these men, okay, they've grown up, but a lot of them have not been socialised. They come from deprived neighbourhoods. The culture they come from has not necessarily been a good culture where they've actually been taught right from wrong. You know, a lot of places where these men come from, they get a pat on the back for doing wrong if they get away with it. And I want all the negative stuff to come out in these discussions, and I want it all dealt with once and for all. I'm not asking for a lot, just want all the stuff out the way. In group therapy sessions, we'll talk about people's attitudes and behaviour, and we'll actually confront them with the things that are wrong about the way they communicate, their body language, their use of language, their abusiveness, their attempts to intimidate physically, bullying tactics, all these things we'll confront them with. We want the reps to
Council
rotate.
meetings like this, where all inmates on the project gather to deal with problems that arise, are an essential ingredient to the success of the project.
Now what is important here is the process of communication. It's you lads getting together and talking, communicating how you feel to each other.
For the next half hour, the men then sit and discuss Trevor's suggestions.
The council has to itself come up with its own sort of rules and regulations and put them to the people, put them to everyone in the unit so that everyone can vote those rules and regulations to be okay or not okay.
And we do believe that an agenda from each dorm should be brought to the council, dealing with anything that the council should know about. And that's where we left it, gents. Thank you.
For the men, this is leadership training in action.
Chris was saying about the way you come across with your words, with your voice, the power of your voice, can be intimidating some people. Respect, we touched on that. Allow people to complete statements without being interrupted. Before meetings, always invite the Lord by prayer.
I've always believed that the greatest resource in the prison, untapped resource, is there amongst the inmates. An awful lot of intelligence not used. Why don't we use it?
A good point was raised about specific meetings could be called for specific issues. So if there's an issue, for example, a really issues drug problem, then a specific meeting could be called for that specific issue, rather than pull it into a general council meeting. We then talked about the empowerment, what the council can actually do to achieve its aims. Because at the moment, I mean, how we just discussed it, we can only rely on recommendations.
The Kairos project is a 6-month course. It begins with a special weekend where inmates learn what life can be like in a loving and caring community.
I don't really know how much I can say on this, see, because it's we're not really supposed to talk about the weekend so much, but I think that from my own point of view, you know, over the actual journey weekend which we did, I'd never felt so much love and affection from people over that weekend.
As you can imagine, as a life sentence prisoner, I've had to grow up fairly quickly while I've been in prison and conditioned to things such as violence, hate. It was part of my everyday life, you know. So going on Kairos, doing the weekend, I knew of other men who was doing the same course as I. It broke something in me. It broke the hardness, you know.
About 4 of us from here have been on the weekend, and I've experienced the actual, you know, the experience, and I think basically the religious aspect of it. But at the beginning, a lot of staff were very cynical. But now what they've seen, the change in this particular place, a lot more staff are becoming kind of supportive towards it. You've still got your cynics, but there's not many of them left now.
Hi Andrew,
Hello,
how are you doing?
All right, I brought my testimony. It may help you.
Oh, you're very kind, yes. Just for the people. Oh, yeah, well, so you have to have a green eye. Yeah.
We do stop, we do listen.
And the staff obviously are a key factor in that.
Raising on myself, and I describe myself as a Catholic, even though I worship the hand.
Get used to trying to be productive for myself and those around me, as opposed to feeling and acting negative. Oh, this first time 15.
A lot of people would say, to hell with prisoners, lock them up and throw away the key. But for John Lonergan, this is not the solution.
We are right to condemn people who injure and sort of maim others and cause havoc in a community. But equally as Christians, there's an equal requirement on us to give people an opportunity to change. And unless we give them the opportunity first and then the support, then we're not going to have any long-term future in this whole rehabilitative field.
Turn away from your sin and be faithful to the gospel. Turn away from your sin and be faithful to the gospel. Turn away from your sin and be faithful to the gospel.
Even though only a small group of residents attend official Anglican services, the Christian dimension of the Kairos programme is very important.
We've created a Christian community within the prison environment. And when we interviewed the men to come on, I told them that what I wanted them to do was challenge the prison culture. That is, instead of the strongest prevailing over the weakest always, I wanted the strongest to help the weakest. And if they were happy to do that, they could come on. I also told them that we didn't insist that they be Christians, only that they must accept that this is a Christian program and we expected full participation in it.
I would say that although from a personal point of view, finding Christ was a key part for me, I would say that it's not necessarily a key part for others.
This has been an eye-opener to me, and I never thought that I would actually grasp anything, you know, in religion as such. You know, it's been quite a shock to a lot of my family and friends, really, you know, that I have taken, you know, on board something like this. And I used to mock religion, you know, for a lot of my sentence, really, but I would never do it again.
Like all prisons, the Verne has a drug problem, but the men themselves have devised a programme to help abusers. They have a special drug dorm where 6 inmates live with and support 2 drug users who want to quit. Never at any time do they let these 2 men out of their sight.
Just set my mind away from it. Oh, it was nice. It was a good thing to have.
There's this idea that coming onto this unit and this Christian rehabilitation scheme, suddenly you're going to be, you know, healed of all, you know, afflictions and then whatever, drug taking problems and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the truth of the matter is that it's still there. And instead of just casting it aside or casting the people aside that would have drug problems and not invite them into Kairos, the idea is bringing them in and actually knowing and encouraging them with the idea that they can get support, not from like the powers that be, so to speak, or the hierarchy in terms of the prison service, but actually from the people that are living a sentence along with them.
But I would never have come into a detox involved with the system, you know, admitted to officers that I had a problem. So on that basis, that's why I committed. I wanted to get off the drug, but never got the chance. This gave me the chance.
I think the peer support initiative that they've taken, that we discussed in the unit, was you know, another way, another option really. The support side of the peer support is obviously has great credibility because people obviously who are drug addicts have more respect maybe for their own peers than they have for anybody else. At the same time, to try to enforce that on a wide scale, where, you know, 6 people they said we're looking after and supporting just 2 guys who had a drug problem, that would be very difficult to, for instance, to put it into place in a place like Mountjoy.
The programme would not exist without outside volunteers who are called godparents. These volunteers visit the residents twice a week.
It's all new to you.
Well, yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
Good so far. Yeah. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Had a good week. Fairly miserable. It's always fairly miserable, isn't it? In prison. Where's Ellen? Not coming tonight?
They seem to be very happy to see us coming in. They make us very, very welcome. They tell us about their problems, or they just have a laugh and joke with us.
A place like this.
The amount of people that we get to talk to like that, it's helping people in here, you know, because, I mean, take it the time I've been away, I've sat back for years and all you see is another male face as such, you know. And it gets us away from here, it gets us back to a little bit of reality. We can talk to people in that way, and everything which is being done here is to help us all.
The whole concept of godparenting or community-based support is obviously one of the more positive and maybe even a key factor in the programme.
Another key element in the original Brazilian programme is family involvement. In England, this is also recognised by the national coordinator, Ken Jones, himself an ex-prisoner.
Because what happens here is that men get to grips with the changes they need, but that's not a lot of good unless the family outside to which they're going recognises that change and at the same time is able to change itself. Now, so many men leave prison and they go back to the same sort of down in the dumps environment. How are they going to change then? It's impossible to do that because they're going to the same sort of garbage environment. We encourage families to become actively involved with the men while they're here. And we also offer them the opportunity to go through the same cathartic weekend experience in the free world as their husbands have been through in here.
There's a lot of help which this project can actually give us even outside, you know, from the church and people like that. And there are people that's gone out of here already who are reaping that rewards from it, really.
Dorchester in the south of England. The Kairos project has made a huge difference to the life of Chris Robshaw, who spent 4 years in the Verne.
Well, before, I couldn't talk to no one. And if I did happen to walk through the town at a time when I was out of prison, the only thing that would be on my mind was stealing. Walking through town now, it's completely different, because now I can see things for what they are, and the sights, the smells are completely wonderful. I feel that I really hate prison. That's the last thing I want to do is go back to prison. And I'm really grateful that I was given the opportunity to go on a Kairos course.
My hope is that each one of these men will take what he learns back to the broken community he comes from and the broken family situation or the cultural situation, and he will have like a domino effect on others, and that this thing will grow within the prison system but within the community outside, and will actually get to the point where it tackles crime at its roots in society.
We have found, like, over the years, I see potential in it. I wouldn't want to, be over-optimistic, because Mountjoy has its own characteristics. And every programme that might work in England, for instance, or indeed in any other country, may not necessarily work in Mountjoy. But I believe that it justifies a trial basis or a pilot. And if it works, it can be expanded.